Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Jason Williams, and I got my partner in crime, Blake Castetter, and we are the Sunday Fun Day guys. Week one, Blake. Finally, we're here. Football is back. Ravens, Kansas City is on right now. How you feeling?
I was gonna say recording during Thursday night football. I don't know why chose Thursday night, but
Well,
man, it's gonna be
yeah.
hard to pay attention and record at the same time.
When you're as skilled as us, Blake, really? Come on. Like, we're pretty good at this thing. We could do this with our eyes closed. We don't want to do that, though, because we are on YouTube now. So we don't want that look to get out there with our eyes closed. But a lot of interesting storylines that are going to impact this week. So can you shed some light on a couple that you kind of wrote down in our notes?
Yeah, man. So Jamar Chase is back at practice. How does that impact fantasy football? The Bengals, Joe Burrow, T. Higgins. How much is he gonna play? What's the
Yeah.
chemistry gonna be like?
Chase is on the case.
He is. You've
Yes.
also got CMC with an official injury designation.
I did see that.
Calf/Achilles limited in practice.
Interesting.
Kyle Pitts, all kinds of rumors going around
That
there.
That guy. Don't get me started on Kyle Pitts. I'll get to him later, but keep going. I don't mean to interrupt.
And then you got Russell Wilson in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, with the calf injury against a much improved Atlanta defense, that's going to be an interesting game in terms of if Russell is anywhere, shape, form, kind of struggling with that calf and he can't run around, then Atlanta, watch that game. That's going to be an interesting game, Fanatics.
Justin Fields might be in sooner than later.
Yes, he will be. I think he could be in this particular game. So you got Kyle Pitts, Russell Wilson, Jamar Chase, and CMC. All kind of storylines as we head into the first full weekend, in the NFL season. But to kick off our show, we're going to start talking about our starts and sits for week one by position. So we're going to go through the quarterbacks, who we think should start, who we think should sit, running backs, who we think we should start, and we think you should sit, wide receivers, and tight ends. So, Blake, I'm going to let you start it off with our quarterbacks. Who's your guy this week, Blake? You're starting.
Jared Goff.
Okay.
I believe in him. He's at home, indoors. We know how Jared Goff does at home. In the past 21 home games, this guy's scored at least 20 points in 16 of them. But in 10 of them, he scored at least 25. Now he's going up against a Rams defense that isn't what it used to be with the loss of Ernest Jones and Aaron Donald. Projected point total of 51 points, which sounds like it could be a high-scoring game, maybe a lot of points for Mr. Goff.
Yeah, I feel like that's a solid pick to start off week one. I am going with Joe Burrow. Yes, Joe Burrow. First time in his career, he's gone through a whole training camp. Now I know what you're saying. Well, Jamar Chase hasn't practiced. Well, I know that. And I think Chase will be back. And I think they've had that chemistry for years. So I don't think that'll be a problem. My issue with Chase could be in terms of is he going to be on a pitch count, which could be because he hasn't had any game action in, since the season was over last year. Also, going against the New England defense that quite honestly probably isn't that good. And they lost Matthew Judon to the Falcons. And I don't expect New England to be that good. And there's some people talking about already them getting the first pick in next year's draft. So the combination of Joe Burrow having a full training camp, still having great receivers in T. Higgins, Andre Echavas, we got Mike Gesicki. Joe Burrow can make any receiver good. Now, if he gets Jamar, and Jamar is what we think he's going to be, then I expect big, big things. But I still, with Joe, expect a big game this weekend against the Patriots.
Yeah, Josivac has definitely stepped up and filled in that he's making it hard for Jermaine Burton to get on the field.
100%.
So we each also made a sit of the week.
Yes, we did. I'm gonna go over mine first. And this is gonna be real easy for me. It's Dak Prescott. And I know what you're thinking. Dak, I mean, this is a guy who I think he had the most touchdowns last year, all kinds of passing yards, whatever, whatever. But this year's a little bit different for Dak. First of all, obviously, we all know the deal with CeeDee Lamb, and he's back, and I expect those two to get going rather quickly. But the issue in Dallas is one, no running game, and I'll get to that. Again, good segue. See, I'm already in midseason form. Good segue into that. But also the new offensive lineman that Dallas has against Myles Garrett. I mean, again, let me repeat that. New offensive lineman, Myles Garrett. Yikes. So I am sitting Dak Prescott this week for sure.
I'm leaning towards Brock Purdy.
Whoa. Okay.
Now, he just got Ayuk back.
Yep.
He just got Trent Williams back. But he's going up against the Jets defense that allowed the second fewest points to quarterbacks last year. And then again, is Ayuk going to be on a pitch count? Is Trent Williams going to be on a pitch count? And at the same time, the total points for the game projected at 43 for the over-under.
Low.
Yeah. And I do think that with CMC being a little banged up, they're probably going to lean on Purdy a little bit more. So the attempts might be higher than normal. But again, he's still facing a stout pass defense in the Jets. Not worth the risk for me.
I agree. I think Dak and Purdy are going up against the two of the best defenses, not only last year, but coming into this year. They didn't really lose anything, each defense, and they may have gained some additional depth. So Dak Prescott, Brock Purdy, we say sit this week. Who you starting at running back, Blake?
This is a guy, so I tried to look a little bit deeper. And it's a guy I'm not a huge fan of across the board, season ranking wise, but it's right. Javonte Williams. The matchup this week is just solid. He's going to lead the Broncos in carries without question. He's probably going to be the only offense they have going with Bo Nix at quarterback.
Playing in Seattle.
Yep. Speaking of Bo Nix at quarterback, I have to imagine that Peyton's going to use Williams early and often to try and take some of the pressure off of Nix. So he's going to get a lot of carries. And he's going up against the Seattle defense that gave up the second most points to fantasy running backs in 2023.
Makes sense to me. I've actually drafted Javonte Williams in a couple leagues, so I'm excited to hear that you're starting him this week. That makes me happy. My start is Saquon Barkley. Now, we all know Saquon from his Giants days. And the one thing about Saquon we know is he basically did everything with nothing. And what I mean by everything with nothing, this guy was still putting up all-pro numbers with a line that was at best below average. And I'm kind of probably being generous. I mean, we can even say they were terrible. So going to a new team, one much better quarterback, no question. Like, we can't even compare Jalen Hurts to Daniel Jones. We're not even talking about that. But the most important thing is offensive line is 100 times better than the one in New York. Even with the loss of Jason Kelce, Philly's line is way better than the Giants' line. I think that's going to pay big dividends for Saquon. I think Saquon Barkley is going to have a huge year, and I think he's going to help relieve some of the pressure from Jalen Hurts. I think Jalen Hurts last year relied on his passing ability too much because Philly didn't run the ball enough, and I think that hurt him towards the end of the season. I think that's why they struggled. But when you got Saquon, you find ways to get Saquon Barkley the ball, whether it be passing or running. And if you do that, and if he gets 20 touches a game, you're going to be successful.
Yeah, I was staring down the barrel when I was prepping for the show of going with Saquon Barkley's over total 100 receiving and rushing yards combined. At plus 175.
That. Oh, man. Whew.
I just don't know how Philly is going to use him out of the backfield from a receiving option.
I get it. Yeah, that would be tough because, I mean, you never know what's going to happen the first game. Like, you don't know what people are going to do. You kind of have an idea, but game plans can change. I mean, everything was real vanilla. Nobody played the preseason, so you're right. But that's a pretty tempting wager if you ask me. I'd probably throw some change at that.
I did not pick that as one of my three that we'll talk about later, though.
Yeah.
But I do find what is interesting is that both of our backfield sits.
Our whole backfields.
Like split backfields. I went with the Titans backfield And that just came across earlier today that they announced it was going to be a 50-50 split.
Right.
And for me, with what you paid for Spears and Pollard, I mean, you shouldn't expect him to be RB1, RB2 at this point. So if you're looking at an RB3 or flex, I mean, I think that's a fair start. But if you're
Right.
looking at anything higher than an RB3 or flex in a 50-50 split timeshare in Tennessee, that's some gambling right there that I'm not comfortable with.
I would agree 100%. I think with these two sits, I think you're going to have to wait for a couple weeks to see how things shake out. Obviously, your pick is the Titans running backs. Well, my pick is the Cowboys backfield as well. Zeke, Rico Dowdell, and obviously Dalvin Cook. And I just don't see it. Again, with the new offensive line, the Browns' stout defense against the run, I don't see how anybody in the Cowboys backfield in terms of fantasy produces anything other than maybe 6-7 points at the absolute most if you're doing PPR. I just don't see it. So if I'm out there and you're out there, Fanatics, I am staying away from the entire Cowboys backfield and even the Titans backfield, to Blake's point, until all that stuff kind of shakes itself out. And it will over the next couple of weeks. You'll know by probably week 3 how this thing is going to turn out. But right now, with everything being unknown, those are two backfields you want to steer clear from.
Yeah, and I know in our rankings episode, I talked pretty highly about investing in those split backfields because the risk is already built in. But that doesn't mean you start them at your RB1, RB2 spots.
Week 1, yeah.
At this point, let's find out what
Right.
you got and hope that you hit gold with one of your round 9, round 10, round 8 running back picks, and he ends up being a RB2.
Yeah, I mean, let it all shake out, folks, because it's going to take a minute to figure out who's getting the carries, who's getting receptions, who's in on thirds down, who's getting goal line. I mean, there's so many variables when it comes to splits backfields. I mean, we won't know again for at least a couple weeks. So there you have it. Split backfields in Dallas and Tennessee. Blake and I say sit them at least for the next couple weeks until things shake out. Wide receivers?
Yeah, man.
I'll go with mine first.
Let's run it.
For me, this was easy. I mean, Chris Olave, and I've been a big Chris Olave fan in this whole fantasy, I guess, preseason in terms of what he's going to put up in the numbers. I just think with his ability and the Saints not really having another go-to receiver other than Chris Olave, I think he's going to have a big year. He's Derek Carr's only real target that is consistent. And there's a line that I'm already skewing to in terms of our picks, in terms of betting. We'll get to that later. But in terms of starting Chris Olave, I think this is the beginning of a big year for Chris Olave if Derek Carr can get him the ball. And I know that's kind of I wouldn't say a big if, but a little bit of an if. But I see no reason why Chris Olave isn't way more than a top 10 wide receiver, at least for this week. At least top 8, in my opinion.
I'm good with that. I'll support that later when we get to the betting portion of our episode.
Yes.
So my start of the week at wide receivers, T. Higgins, and this is the case in all platforms, all PPR, half PPR, everything. I'm firing him up across the board. I've got him in DraftKings, in my private pools that I'm doing. It's not a high investment. It's low risk, high reward across the board. I don't know what Chase is going to do. I don't know how much involvement he's going to have, but Higgins all offseason's building rapport with Burrow. And I have to imagine whether or not Chase is in, that carries over to week 1, as long as Higgins is healthy.
Yeah. And let's be honest. He's playing for money.
He is.
he needs to have a huge year. And that starts against a Patriots secondary. And again, let's be honest, is not very good. What do you have him? 17th in 2023? Is that their ranking?
That's what how New England's pass defense was last year.
Yeah. So again, with Burrow and T. Higgins having a full training camp, this is for me. This is another great pick in terms of a start that you want to make in week 1.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
One that might be a little controversial is my sit, though.
Mm.
I keep pushing down Stephon Diggs. This is another scenario where, just like the backfields, no one knows what's going to happen in this Houston offense. We know that it's going to run through Stroud and
Correct.
Mixon. Aside from that, we don't know. We have no
Mhm.
idea what their intention was with bringing Diggs in, why they afforded him let go the rest of his contract. How are they going to use him? How is Tank
Right.
Dell,
Mhm.
recovering from his injury?
Yeah.
What's the deal with Nico Collins? Who's going to be the wide receiver 1, 2, 3? Is it going to change every single week? So I'm staying away.
Yeah. I agree with you 100%. I think until things shake out, and you forgot about Dalton Schultz, the tight end. Like, how are they going to use him? A lot of it's going to be contingent on what type of defenses are they getting. Are they getting the vaunted Tampa 2 defense, which leaves the middle wide open? If that's the case, then we're talking about Dalton Schultz, and are you really going to get production out of your inside receiver? And if Stephon Diggs is that inside receiver, probably not going to be as productive as the outside guys. So I agree with you 100% on Stephon Diggs. Even a couple of other Houston receivers, like, again, we just don't know what kind of. I mean, we feel good about it in terms of their production, but how's it going to skew? Like, is it going to be, Dell, Collins, Schultz, Mix? I mean, Mix is going to get some run in the passing game too. He's a great receiver. So while Houston's offense is explosive for fantasy purposes, one week it could be Dell, one week it could be Collins, one week it could be Schultz. So it's going to be interesting to see how that all shakes out over the first month of the season.
I just hope that you gambled right and picked the right one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So my sit is a little bit surprising and maybe a little bit controversial as well. I've got Devontae Adams, and here's the only reason I have him. Gardner Minshew is the quarterback for the Las Vegas Raiders, and he did a great job in Indy. Don't get me wrong, but at the end of the day, Gardner Minshew is your quarterback. So are DBs really afraid of Gardner Minshew? And again, I don't know. I haven't seen a lot of tape on him, and he can sling it, but I just don't think Devontae Adams is going to get the production. One, because of the quarterback, and two, because again, defenses are going to game plan around him. And again, he's a great receiver. It'll get open sometimes, but can Gardner Minshew give him the ball in those spots, and can he make those plays? So I think Devontae in that offense is going to struggle. And he says he's happy, but somebody asked him if he wasn't happy. So I'm inclined to think when somebody asks you if you're not happy, something's up.
Yeah, they're reading the room.
Yeah,
There's a reason they're asking.
correct. They don't just ask questions to ask questions. So yeah, Devontae Adams, I would definitely, at least for this week, until you figure out like how it's all going to shake out with him and the rapport with Gardner Mitchell, I would stay away from Devontae Adams and, to Blake's point, Stephon Diggs. Like those two, especially week one, if you're looking to get points and looking to get, a successful start to your fantasy season, we suggest you stay away from both of those guys at receiver.
I mean, that's a big call on your part, Jay.
It is. It is.
You're talking about second round draft capital.
Yep. I agree. It was a tough one. I had a couple other guys. I was like, I just don't feel good about it. For some reason, I just don't feel good about it.
You know someone I do feel good about?
Let's talk about it.
Colby Parkinson.
Okay.
Tight end.
Tell me
Los
about Kobe.
Angeles Rams.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. You got Tyler Higbee out. Rams have been known to throw to the tight end. He's gotten great camp feedback and hype. If you're looking for a tight end to fill a potential injured tight end spot, like, I don't know, Kyle Pitts,
Yeah.
you could look to your waiver wire probably and find Colby Parkinson still sitting there.
Oh, there's no question. I don't care what any type of format. It could probably be a 16-team league. You might be able to scoop him up off the waiver wire. No, I think that's an interesting sleeper pick in terms of tight end. Don't know much about Colby, but if he's starting for the Rams, we know the Rams do like to throw to the tight end, and Stafford's always liked to throw to the tight end since his Detroit days. So I'd say that's not a bad pick, partner.
He was one of my late round draft picks this year, and
Yeah.
I think it might be his job to lose by the time Higbee comes back.
Yeah, because Higbee is a little long in the tooth. He's been there for a little bit.
Yep.
Yep. So mine is a I think, pretty easy one. It's Dalton Kincaid for the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo plays Arizona. And again, I don't have the stats in front of me in terms of how Arizona relates to the tight end or how they cover tight ends from the previous year. But I do know this. Josh Allen doesn't have Gabe Davis or Stephon Diggs. So, and he's got a rookie wide receiver that has never, obviously never played it down in the NFL yet. It probably, as the season goes on, it'll probably get better, but you can't really count on him. So who are you going to throw the ball to? In my opinion, it's got to be Dalton Kincaid. And then I'm talking, I'd be surprised if he didn't get over 10 targets at least a game this year with the weapons they don't have. Let's just put it that way. So my start this week at tight end, Dalton Kincaid.
You forgot to mention Curtis Samuel.
Oh, I did? Yeah, I did. Right. That's a good one, though. My bad, Curtis. Sorry, buddy.
But we both matched up on our sits of the week with
yes,
our injury prone and already injured Kyle Pitts. So if you
This
have Kyle
guy.
Pitts and you need a tight end,
you better go get Kobe Parkinson.
go get
Seriously.
Parkinson.
This is crazy. Like Kyle Pitts, man. If he doesn't be careful, if he's not careful, he could be one of the biggest busts of all time. I don't want to say he's trending that way, but it kind of is trending that way. Like he needed the Kirk Cousins to come there bad, like to salvage his career. So I hope he does well because I really like the guy. But one, he can't stay healthy and he's never had a good quarterback. So again, whose fault is that? I mean, obviously the Falcons organization, but now he's got Kirk Cousins and then now he's hurt. So like, what do you do at that point? It's going to be real interesting to see one, if he plays this week and how effective he is.
All right. Well, that's our start sit, man. Week 1 start sits in the books.
I like it.
You want to head over to Survivor?
Oh, our favorite segment of the show, at least I can't speak for Blake, but my favorite. Yes, let's talk about Survivor. So we're starting off week 1, probably the hardest week to pick. Blake, wouldn't you agree? Like week 1 is hard.
I mean, weeks 1 through 4 are hard.
Yeah, but I think week 1 is like really, really hard just because you really got no idea. But to your point, the whole month of September is hard.
Yeah, you don't know what you don't know. Like we all think
Right.
we have an idea of what's going on in all these backfields and wide
Sure.
receiver cores and defenses and
Yep.
new offensive coordinator changes, all the things. But until we've got a couple weeks under our belt,
Don't know.
you don't know.
Don't know. So I will
Well,
I'll
so
go over
this
my
week,
picks.
we've only
Yeah.
got one team that's favored by more than a touchdown.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That's scary. That's scary.
So that makes this even harder.
Right. That's what I said. This week, I looked at the schedule like a couple of days ago. I said, whoa. There's potential gimmies, but those could be potential roadblocks as well.
Mm-hmm. I was
So
torn
I'll-
between
go
two
ahead.
teams on my safe pick of the week
Okay.
for Survivor. One being Seattle, the other being New Orleans.
I got you.
I really wanted to go Seattle because Denver offense, I'm really struggling to see them beating Seattle.
I'll be honest with you. I was thinking the same thing. Like I was going to be my safe pick, but keep going.
But I ended up with New Orleans. So we got the Saints against Carolina. The Saints have a 79% win probability. That's the number one win probability for the week via number fire. But only a 10% public pick percentage, like a popularity.
That's
percentage.
interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
And so the reason I went this route are those two variables, plus the fact that they have absolutely, literally almost zero future value.
Meaning the Saints.
The Saints. Like,
Right.
there's not many more games at this point that they're like highly favored to win
Sure.
looking
Right.
ahead. So if I'm going
Right.
to take a shot,
Taking your shot.
we'll take a shot on a team that's very highly favored to win based on probability and one that has little future value.
Makes sense to me. Makes
Who's
perfect
your
sense.
safe pick of the week?
My safe pick is the team that's favored by more than a touchdown. It's the Bengals. I mean, it's just what I stated before. Obviously, Joe Burrow is, my starter of the week. Joe Burrow has had a fully healthy camp, no issues. He's getting his star receiver back. He has T. Higgins. He has a bunch of weapons. I'm a little concerned about the running game, but the offensive line should be much improved, which is going to help him in the passing game. And honestly, I just Jacoby Brissett against the Bengals D. I don't see him generating a lot of touchdowns. They may be able to get into field goal range and maybe kicking field goals, but I think the Bengals score touchdowns and the Patriots scrape by with field goals. So with that being said, my safe pick is the Bengals over the Patriots in Week 1.
That was the popular pick, Jason.
Yes.
What did I think? I was doing some research. I saw they projected it at a 46% hit rate.
Ooh.
Could you imagine?
No, don't say it. Don't you do it. Don't you do it. Don't you do
Week
it.
1.
Don't you? Anything's possible, right? Anything's possible.
Yep.
Whew. Now
So,
we can't have that.
in looking at this, you and I both matched up on our caution picks of the week.
Yes. I'm not
Houston.
surprised.
You were surprised by that?
I'm not surprised at all.
Yeah, I'm not either.
I'm not either. Yeah.
That's one of those games that Houston at Indy on the road, division matchup, healthy Anthony Richardson, healthy Jonathan Taylor. You got Michael Pittman back.
Right. That's a tough one.
You're in Indy, division matchup. Like, I'm going to repeat those things again. Like,
you're in Indy, division matchup.
those are two of our rules. Like, you're traveling and you're a division rival. And those games are always good.
And you could say, I mean, Richardson did have a small body of work, but he's essentially still in his rookie year. So that kind of is an asterisk by one of our rules, like in terms of, new starters. He was essentially out the whole season. Yeah, this one's tough. Like, I would not be surprised if Indy beat Houston just because, again, division rival, they know their offense. Houston's coming in with all these press clippings, and I know D'Amico Ryans is a great coach, but it's human nature. Let's be honest. Like, everybody's telling you the best things to slice bread. You're going to believe things to slice bread. I don't care what anybody says. So, buyer beware. Caution pick Houston over the Indianapolis Colts.
All right. So that's only 3 picks this week on the Survivor side of things. Let's jump into our new segment.
Yes.
The Sunday 6-pack.
Sunday 6-pack?
Yeah. Get your Sunday started right, Jason.
There we go. Did you hear that nice bubbly? Woo.
That would be our bets of the week. So what Jason and I have done is we've compiled our 3 favorite bets each for the week. I'm going to go ahead and start off with mine. Colby Parkinson, over 2.5 receptions. This is on all platforms. DraftKings, FanDuel, BetMGM. He's over 2.5 in every single one. The reason I like this one, the Lions have allowed 7.7 targets per game to tight ends in the last 13 games in 2023. In the end, they allowed 6 receptions per game in 13 games in 2023. And like I mentioned before, Colby Parkinson is the starting tight end in a Matthew Stafford-led offense.
There's that man again.
Yep.
Nice.
My second pick of the week, Bengals to cover 8 against New England. And all I'm going to say, very simple. Welcome Trent Brown. Welcome back Jamar Chase. And welcome Jacoby Brissett.
All right.
I think New England has some of the worst ranked position sets in the NFL. Joe Burrow
Right.
has played in multiple preseason games, which he's never done. So I think
Yeah,
the
I mean,
Bengals purely dominate.
no, I think you're right. I think what I'm interested to see is the Bengals defense. We know what their offense can do, but I think the addition of Von Bell and the safety from the Ravens, and his name is escaping me, I think that's going to solidify that defense. If you looked at last year's defense with the Bengals, and this is my biggest concern, obviously being a Bengals fan, is having two new safeties is a recipe for disaster. And the Bengals, I believe, were one of the worst teams in terms of explosive plays last year. So I think the addition of those two veteran safeties on the defensive side, combined with your point about Joe playing the preseason, Jamar, offensive line, home opener. It's a what is it? An orange. Everybody's wearing orange, so everybody's gonna be excited. The weather's gonna be perfect. Yeah, New England, you're coming into a buzzsaw. Let's just be honest. So, so I would agree with you 100% on that pick.
And then my third pick supports one of your picks from earlier in the night. Chris Olave over 63.5 receiving yards. And here's my reasoning. For starters, Clint Kubiak, new offensive coordinator, loves pre-snap motion, loves slants, loves getting ball in the hands of his skill players and getting them in open field. In 4 games against Carolina, Olave's averaged just over 80 yards per game. What really stands out to me is the 4-point spread. So New Orleans is only favored by 4, which indicates or suggests that this is going to be a closer game.
Mm-hmm.
In 2023, teams going up against Carolina had the fewest number of passing attempts and the 5th most rushing attempts. And I mean, I have to attribute that to them being up comfortably in the second half of every single game and just running the ball and not passing it. So a 4-point spread, if it is a more competitive game than 2023 was, Olave is still going to be involved in the offense throughout the entire game. I've struggled to see him not getting 63.5 receiving yards.
I would agree. He's my guy this year. Like Chris Olave, he might be in every segment I do for the rest of the year. No, I think your three picks are spot on. Kobe Parkinson, I mean, I think that's a no-brainer. Bengals, I mean, that's a lot of points in the NFL, but I have no reason not to believe that. And then, Chris Olave, you have him for receiving yards, and that's actually going to segue into my 3 picks in terms of betting. I'll even start with Chris Olave. So Blake has some. Yeah, did you just saw that?
Yeah.
So Blake has Chris Olave for over 63.5 yards. I totally agree with that. But I have over 5.5 receptions versus Carolina. Like I can't name anybody on the Carolina secondary. Not saying they're not good, but again, I just think Chris Olave has a monster week. I think he gets probably double-digit receptions, close to 10, if not 8. I would say at least 8 to 10. I think targets will definitely be around 12 minimum. So I don't see any reason that Chris Olave won't have a big game. So we're telling you the over on receiving yards and the overall receptions for Chris Olave. So you can take those to the bank. My next 2 are interesting. I actually have Jordan Love over 1.5 touchdowns against Philly. Now, again, we all saw Jordan Love at the end of last year, and then we saw Philly at the end of last year. And you can make an argument that Jordan Love was the best quarterback in the NFL for the last half of the season. CJ Stroud, you go back and forth. And you can make the argument that Philly's defense was one of the worst in the NFL last season. Again, I know you can't go off of last season, but I think Jordan Love is poised for almost an MVP season. And I think Philly's defense, while better with Fangio, I still think they give up big plays to that trio of wide receivers for Green Bay. And I think Jordan Love gets over 1.5 touchdowns this week against Philly. Now, originally, I think I messed this one up. I had Russell Wilson over 1.5 touchdowns against Atlanta. Let me change that because that was definitely an under for me. Pittsburgh's offensive line is not very good. Russell Wilson is hurt. We don't know this. We know Ward is probably going to play, but we don't know how good he is. And let me tell you something, Fanatics. In all of my drafts this year, my sleeper defense is the Atlanta Falcons. Watch out for the Atlanta Falcons. Last year was the Cleveland Browns, and I feel like I hit home on that. Watch out for the Atlanta Falcons, not only in this game, but you got to think about their division with Carolina, New Orleans, and who else am I missing? Tampa Bay. So we're not talking about murderer's row when it comes to offenses. So I think Atlanta's defense is going to be way, way much improved. They've made some changes. They've added some pieces, and I think they're going to show up and they're going to show out against Pittsburgh. So Russell Wilson, no way he's getting over a touchdown and a half this week against the Falcons.
I wasn't going to call you out on it, but I was cringing from the inside and also thinking back to you talking about him being injured and a slow go. And I was not sure as I was reading through your three choices here.
Typo.
How Over and Russell Wilson were in the same sentence.
Typo. Definitely a typo. I just saw that. I was like, whoa, wait a minute. That is definitely not the case. I am not going down that road at all. Not even close.
You would have made us look bad.
Really bad. And it's only week 1. We got a long time to go doing these things. So I don't want to make us look that bad. At least
might have lost some listeners over that stuff.
Yeah, that might have happened. Notice again, I changed it quick. We all, again, we learn from our mistakes. But yeah, Russell Wilson under a touchdown and a half. No way. I just don't see it. The line, the continuity. He really hasn't played. He's played some of the preseason, but has he really played enough? And again, Pittsburgh Steelers fans should be very concerned about that offense. And I'm not sure how that defense is going to be because they may be on the field too long because the offense is a generating point. So early on, Steeler fans, hold your water a little bit. I know, you got Mike Tomlin and whatever, but this is going to be interesting year offensively. And how long does it take Pittsburgh to realize that probably Justin Fields is the way to go? That's going to be another interesting tidbit for the Steelers.
I'm not upset about Steeler country having trouble getting going.
Notice we're laughing right now.
Yep.
Let's talk about the socials, Blake. What are we up to these days? Man, we're hitting them hot and heavy. Join
us in the conversation over on Facebook. That's where it's really happening. We are at the Sunday Fun Day, guys. Instagram's active, but not as active. We don't have as much conversation going on there, but we are Sunday Fun Day, guys.
We're getting there.
Right.
Yeah.
We're also now on YouTube. So right now we're currently recording live and streaming over to YouTube. You can find us at Sunday Fun Day, guys. If you want to make sure you find us, include Sunday Fun Day, guys, fantasy football, and our channel will pop right up.
Perfect. Any final words, my man? Week 1?
I just hope that we're going to keep working on keeping the content fresh and mixing up the segments and continuing to get better and bring value to everyone that's listening and having a good time while we do it.
Great. Well, I don't have anything to add, but enjoy your Sunday, folks. This is a wrap for this episode of the Sunday Fun Day Guys Football Podcast. And Fanatics, remember to make this Sunday your fun day. Sunday Fun Day Guys out.